friends, and welcome to the 17th episode of FinWiz, the Fridays Fire Chats. In the last episode, we were talking about contingency and why we need to be prepared, how you will have to expect the unexpected. And what we meant by contingency is typically a situation in life when the income gets disrupted. When we're talking about the disruption of income, it can happen because of two prima facie important reasons. One is because the employment in which we are or the business in which we are operating could have been affected because of some scenario in the economy or some problems in that particular sector in which we are operating in. Or it could also happen because of medical reasons where my health has got affected. Right? So how do we need to prepare for it is something that we went in depth about it, and I hope you have understood the need to be prepared for the exigency kind of situations. Now we'll look at, okay, what are the important factors which will determine how much money I should have as a reserves for any kind of an emergency or contingency situation financially. Now looking at it, there are four important factors. I did touch upon this in my previous episode also, wherein the amount of money that you need to have as a backup depends on the age. The younger the person, the faster he could recover from a health scenario, or probably he will get a job quickly. It also depends on the position in which somebody is serving in an organization, if it is with respect to an employment. If somebody is in a lower level in the management, probably there will be a lot of opportunities for them to look for another job if he faces the risk of any kind of a pink slip or a job loss. Or it also depends on the skill set a person possesses. If he's got very unique skill set, which is definitely in demand in the sector, in the particular industry in which he's operating in, probably it will be very quick and very easy for him to get another job vis-a-vis if the skill set is very common. So we need to also look at upskilling ourselves at that particular point in time. And most importantly, it also depends on the kind of sector in which you're operating, especially if you're looking at an employment in the PSU or a government sector or in kind of very stable sectors like FMCG, where the risk of a job loss is very less, vis-a-vis somebody who's working in an IT sector. So I hope now all these points you have taken into account when you're looking at preparing yourself for an emergency situation. Now the question is, depending on these four important factors, that is the age, the position in which you are serving in an organization, the skill sets that you possess, and the sector in which you are operating, we need to arrive at how much money. Ideally, there is no particular science or a thumb rule, but to give you a quick ballpark figure, we would ideally say somebody within the age group of say 25 to 35 should have about 3 months to 6 months of their monthly expenses as a backup. Somebody between the age of 35 to 45 should be having anywhere between 9 months to 12 months of their monthly expenses as a backup. Somebody who is closer to say age of 50 should be having ideally about 1 year to 2 years of monthly expenses as a financial backup to be prepared for any kind of emergency or contingency situation. This is just a ballpark figure, my dear friend, but then you need to understand what is your lifestyle habits, what are your expenses, and how quickly you are re-employable or your business can recover from any kind of a jolt that is probably faced because of any sectoral changes or any impact because of the clients and the vendors with which whom you are operating in that particular business. You need to have enough working capital requirement also. So on this thumb rule figure, whatever that we have discussed, the question would also come, this is fine with respect to the job, but what about medical? So yes, when it comes to health reasons, as we said, when let us say I'm admitted in the hospital and I take some time to recover from an ill health, the expenses of the family needs to be taken care, for which we are talking about the contingency. But what about the medical insurance coverage? Should I have sufficient amount of coverage, or how much I should have? This is something again depending on the kind of treatment that you need to go through or the ailment that can affect us. So it is not easy definitely to give a particular dot figure for it. But depending on the health or the background history in the particular family in which we are in, there could be certain chances of occurrence of a particular ailment, a pretty high probability that it can happen. So probably you need to sit and have a discussion with your family doctor and understand what could be the expenses if at all such an ailment hits us. Yes, we cannot predict something like COVID that happened in the recent times, but at least anything else that can probably happen because of the family history. That is something that you should definitely look at. And also the area in which you are staying. Ideally, if at all there is a medical emergency, we would rush to the nearest hospital from where we are staying, our place of residence or the place of work. But those hospitals should be covered in the network list in which your medical insurance is taken. That is something that you need to look at. And most importantly, there could also be caps with respect to the room rents. So you need to ensure that you have sufficient amount of coverage, be it a 5 lakhs or a 10 lakh coverage. Or if you feel it is insufficient, it is time to sit with your insurance advisor and understand how you can increase your medical insurance coverage, or also look at topping up by taking a sufficient amount of top-up policy. So this is something that you should look at it. Now looking at where should I keep the money? Whatever that we have recommended on the contingency reserves to be available, where should you park this money? So ideally, I would recommend this money to be parked in your savings account as well as a fixed deposit and a combination of some liquid funds under the mutual funds category. Now, when you are looking at savings account, most often, if you have a very fat bank balance, there is a tendency for us to start splurging on certain expenses, which could be even unwanted. So, ideally, we recommend as financial planner to have about 1 month to 2 months of monthly expenses, which includes even your EMIs, as a balance in your savings bank account. And beyond that, whatever is required for your contingency requirement, split it up equally between a fixed deposit and a liquid mutual fund. Now, somebody would not be very comfortable with a fixed deposit, then you can look at entirely on a mutual fund or even the other way around. When you're looking at fixed deposit, it is not very specific that you are looking at from the tax perspective, because any of these products, be it the fixed deposits or the liquid mutual funds, they are not going to be a very tax efficient product or may not be very high on the return. But my dear friend, what is important over here, our requirement over here is with respect to easy liquidity whenever it is required, right? So if you have a huge bank balance only in the savings account, you cannot go and withdraw the entire amount. Say, let's say I have a requirement of 1 lakh rupees immediately, I cannot go and withdraw it, right? So you need to have alternate options also available. So when you're looking at fixed deposit again, let's say for example, you want to have about 5 lakh rupees for a contingency reserve in a fixed deposit, do not ideally put it as one single deposit, split it as different deposits, maybe a 2 lakh or a 2 lakh or a 1 lakh. Because if let us say I require only about 1 lakh rupees, I could break only that particular FD. I don't need to break the entire 5 lakh deposit. Or check with your bank whether the FD that you make, there is an option of partial withdrawal. Couple of banks have this facility, but not everyone. So if your bank does not have this facility, then break your FDs into 1 year, rather 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 2 lakh, in whatever the portions that you are comfortable. And again, when you are choosing a tenure, choose across different tenures. Interest rate, though, is not the primary concern. You can look at having an FD for 1 year, 2 year, and again renew it as and when it is due for renewal. Do not ideally go for a monthly interest or a quarterly interest payout. Look at it as a cumulative mode so that the interest can accrue, because as the expenses increase, the requirement for a contingency reserve also will increase as the months and years go by. So it is important that you can choose a cumulative option. Nowadays, there are certain fixed deposit which come with a particular option wherein you can choose whether the premature withdrawal facility should be available or not. What happens typically if you do not opt for premature withdrawal is you could earn a higher interest, but it does not serve the purpose of money being available for a contingency or emergency purpose. So you should ideally look for a deposit where there is no restrictions on premature closure requests. And when you're looking at on the mutual fund space, ideally there are a couple of funds like overnight funds wherein the money is ideally invested in those kind of debt instruments which are highly liquid, probably maturity of only about a day or two. And you can also look at liquid funds, wherein maybe there could be an exit load period for a 7-day period, but then ideally we are looking at a contingency requirement where we do not know when we will need this money. I am very sure when you park the money, an emergency or contingency will not fall on our head within a 1 week period. So that's not a problem. You can definitely look at parking some money in a liquid fund, or also alternately in a money market fund or an ultra short duration fund. Most of these funds do not have papers, debt papers, debentures, or any of these government papers like treasury bill, certificate of deposit, or commercial papers having a maturity beyond 6-month period. So ideally, these funds will be far, far more safer with respect to the volatility in the NAV, as well as they are also very, very liquid in the sense that within one business day, you can take the money out. Let's say today is a Monday and I want to pull out the money for any kind of emergency requirement. The next day, if it is working day, the Tuesday, as long as it is not a holiday, you will have the money in your bank account by the noon itself, before the noon itself. The first half of the day, the money would hit your account. So, my dear friends, for a contingency requirement, to plan out that money is available whenever you want it for any kind of emergency situation, and do let your near and dear know that you have planned for and kept this money aside in a particular safe place where it is highly liquid. It is also important that beyond all this, you need to have a decent amount of credit limit available on a credit card, and little bit more on how credit cards can be very useful to us is something that we look forward to discuss in our next couple of episodes. So till then, signing off for today is Subhash, a certified financial planner. See you on our next episode. Take care. Bye-bye. Jai Hind.